The waves crashed against the shore with a steady roar, the salty air thick with tension as officers stood facing a rusted shipping container half buried in wet sand. The tide licked at its base, foam curling around the officers' boots as they prepared to pry it open. For days, whispers had spread across town of strange noises heard near the shoreline at night, muffled cries carried on the wind, and the uneasy presence of this single, battered container washed up from nowhere. Now, a small crowd of locals watched from a distance, their faces pale and expectant. The officers braced themselves, knowing that whatever was inside could be something grim, something that would leave scars. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, or the loyalty of animals, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Pawsitive Tales, because stories like this remind us that hope can be found in the unlikeliest places, and your support keeps these powerful stories alive. With batons ready and a K9 pulling against his handler's leash, the officers wedged open the steel door. At first, only darkness and the sharp smell of rust poured out, mingling with the sea air. Then came a faint whimper, so fragile it nearly drowned beneath the ocean's roar. Every heart skipped a beat. As the door swung wide, light cut through the shadows, revealing a heartbreaking sight. Inside, huddled together in filth and fear, were dozens of animals, dogs, some just puppies, shivering and weak. Their eyes reflected both terror and hope, staring at the officers as if pleading for salvation. The officers froze, their training colliding with raw human emotion. This wasn't a drug bust or a weapons find, this was cruelty at its most unforgiving form. The K9, a Belgian Malinois named Archer, barked and strained forward, his instincts recognizing the suffering. His bark was sharp, demanding attention, as if urging the humans around him to act faster. The lead officer's throat tightened. He had seen many things in his years of service, but this scene pierced straight into his soul. Carefully, the teen stepped inside. The floor was wet and sticky, littered with scraps and broken crates. Each animal trembled at their approach, but when Archer nudged forward, the transformation was instant. The dogs inside, sensing one of their own, seemed to find a thread of courage. A puppy, so frail it could barely stand, stumbled toward him and pressed its nose to his paw. Archer leaned down, licking the pup gently, his tail wagging in reassurance. In that moment, the officers knew they had to save every single life in that container. But the challenge was greater than they expected. Many of the dogs were malnourished, their ribs stark under thinning fur. Some bore scars from abuse. Others were too weak to walk. The officers carried them out one by one, their uniforms soaking in salt water and tears. Each rescue felt like pulling hope out of despair, each fragile heartbeat a reminder of resilience. Locals rushed forward with blankets, water, and whatever they could find. The beach, once silent and tense, filled with the sounds of whimpers, barks, and the cries of people moved beyond words. Among the rescued was one dog who stood apart. She was older, her coat dull and eyes cloudy with exhaustion, but her spirit was unbroken. She lay protectively across a small litter of puppies, shielding them even as her own body trembled. The officers recognized her strength and carried her out with special care, Archer walking beside her as if in solidarity. There was an unspoken bond between them, the recognition of a protector in another. The investigation that followed revealed the dark truth. The container had been part of an illegal smuggling operation, abandoned when tides turned against the criminals. Had the locals not reported the strange cries, had the officers not opened it that morning, the ending would have been too tragic to bear. Instead, the animals were rushed to emergency shelters, where volunteers worked tirelessly, offering food, warmth, and the simple comfort of touch. Slowly, the dogs began to recover. Their tails wagged again, their eyes lit up, and life returned where once there was only despair. For the officers, especially the one who first heard the pup's faint cry, this rescue became more than just part of the job. It became a reminder that compassion is the truest form of courage. And for Archer, it was a moment that defined his legacy not just as a police K9, but as a savior to those who had no voice. The bond he shared with the rescued animals was undeniable. Wherever he went in the shelter, the dogs seemed calmer, as if they trusted him more than any human. Weeks later, a public adoption event was held. Families came from all over, many in tears as they met the survivors. Children hugged puppies who had once known only darkness. Elderly couples welcomed companions they never thought they'd find again. The older mother dog and her pups were adopted together by a kind family who promised they would never be separated. And though each goodbye was bittersweet for the officers, it was also a victory, a testament that even in a world of cruelty, kindness could prevail. But perhaps the most moving moment came when one of the friendliest puppies, the one who had first touched Archer's paw, found a home. A young boy, recovering from an illness that had left him weak and lonely, looked into the pup's eyes and smiled for the first time in months. His parents whispered through tears that this tiny life had given their son hope again. Watching from a distance, the officers felt their hearts swell, knowing that the circle of healing was complete. The beach where the container once stood is now remembered not for despair, but for rescue. Locals still gather there, telling the story of the day their community came together to save lives. And the officers? They carry the memory of opening that container like a scar and a blessing, painful to recall, but proof of why they chose to serve. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Pawsitive Tales. Your support helps us continue telling these powerful stories of courage, compassion, and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. And before we close, we have a special request for you. Comment below what you would name the brave puppy who first reached out to Archer inside that container. Your words might inspire others, just as this story inspires us all.